Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes a GM 3800 can have problems. This is not rage bait, and I am definitely not bagging on what might be the greatest engine ever created. I would still definitely swap a 3800 into every single vehicle that I own if social media would provide me with the income to do so. But sometimes you can have issues with a GM 3800. In my day, I have seen a couple of GM 3800s burn valves, but it's always in the front head, and it's so damn easy to pull that head off, you can hardly consider that a problem. No, the thing that I would call a problem is an issue with the crank sensor, somewhere way down in there. Well, it's more an issue of coolant dripping on the crank sensor from the belt tensioner / alternator bracket. Well, more the lines going into it. Yeah. This '05 Buick LaCrosse has that problem, so let's work on fixing it. First, I'm going to pull this engine cover off here. Looks like the squirrels have been in here. We'll put this thing back on to protect this engine's amazing internals. Now we're going to remove this coolant reservoir. That's just a couple little nutty-doos right there. Off with these things. They're not even real nuts. Pull this guy up and out of there. We're just going to flop it over the front here. The lighting's not amazing, but it's a 15mm wrench on this here belt tensioner, and the belt is off. Now we're going to make that alternator disappear. Just this 13mm nut right here, and then there's one plug. Then we got this plug-in right here. Now we have to remove this bolt there, this nut here, that bolt right there to get this bracket out of the way so we can get to the stud underneath. And then there's one more bolt right there. This one here, this one here, and this guy right, oh, that one's tight, right there. And that'd be the feller. Let's get that out of the way, and we're looking at this mess right there. And we're just gonna disconnect these two lines right there. After removing the clamps, those were stuck on there pretty good, so I'm just gonna break them loose like that. Now we're gonna remove this bracket right here. We can almost see the problem. Right there, that little plastic elbow likes to crack and leak right onto the crank sensor. And there's another one up towards the front, right back in there, and you can see that one's broken. Now we've got three 15mm bolts to remove. One right there, one just below it right there, and the one right back into this tight spot right there. He is. I think you can see him. That one right there. Then there's this one right here, and this guy right here. Now I'm just going to wiggle this thing, trying not to break that little plastic connector, but chances are it's going to break. I don't see it pulling straight out of there easily. The top one was already broken, we knew that, so it just fell apart, but I was able to get the bottom one out. It doesn't matter because we're replacing both of these with aluminum ones, which is much better. I won't question why they did this with this tensioner because it's an amazing engine. I'm just going to fix it. These are the things we're going to put in there. They're aluminum. I don't even think you can buy the plastic ones anymore, and that's probably for the best. Let's get these in. First, we got to get the old junk out. We're just going to break that up with a screwdriver. Don't forget to dig the fragments out of the engine block, too. This is going to take some time. This is why you don't want to break them off if there's any way to avoid it. Darn it, that's in there. Alright, now that's out of there. Now what we're going to do is reach into all the ports and clean them as well as we can with a little piece of sandpaper. Clean the best you can in there. And in this one right here. Down here on the water pump. And over here on the intake manifold. Now we're going to grease all the ports. I'm using this Sil-Glide. It's silicone grease, non-petroleum. I think that's better for the O-rings, and we're just going to get every single one of them. Same thing with the water pump and the intake manifold. Now, the way these go, the one with the big end goes into the water pump from the top line, so like such. And the other one goes straight into the intake manifold from here. Now we just got to line these up so they'll slide in simultaneously. Get the bottom one started and then line up the top. Try to get you a better angle there so you can see what's going on, and there. Now we're going to push them both in together. And put your 3 bolts back in. These are the 3 bolts that are all identical. Once you've got those tightened up, it's time to add some coolant. I know these lines aren't hooked up, but that's actually for our benefit. We're going to add coolant until we see coolant coming out of these lines. That helps avoid air pockets. There we go. We'll stick this line on and continue filling until we see coolant come out of the other. Just keep giving her the spring brake. Oh, there we go. Bubbles are out. It's going to spit a little bit. And we'll cap her off. That'll make bleeding the cooling system a lot easier. Now the alternator goes on there like such. Got our stud goes here, bolt goes here, and this one down here. Get all three of these started before you tighten any of them down, otherwise you can have problems. Now we'll plug it in and hook up that wire. This little 13mm nut there. Just snug that up. Doesn't have to be very tight at all. Give it some corrosion protection. Smear that around on there good. And cap it off. This little brace that goes right here, it's got a 10mm down on one end over here. There we go. And it's got a 15mm nut right there. I have no good way to show you how this belt is on there, so you'll need a diagram, but put your belt back on. Coolant reservoir goes in now. That notch right there at the bottom slips over that gray plastic thing down there. Like such, and these two little fake nuts. I don't recommend any more than finger tight with those. She's now fixed. We do need to bleed this engine, but I can't do anything about that until I get the fuel leak fixed. There's a bleeder right here. While the engine's running, you just crack that loose, and when air stops coming out and fluid comes out solid, it's bled.